From the WATE.com Digital Center, answering your legal questions, this is Ask Isaacs. Now, here's Lori Tucker and attorney Greg Isaacs.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are focusing today on a case that has really stunned and horrified not only the Powell community, but the Knoxville community, and really anyone that hears about this case. Greg, it's good to see you today.
It's good to be here.
We're talking about a 15-year-old boy charged in the murder of a 13-year-old girl. And again, this is in the Powell community, and this does weigh into crimes that normally don't happen like that in certain parts of town, and crimes that don't happen like this, period, because we're talking about juveniles and horrific crimes.
Right, and under Tennessee law, Lori, when you have a violent juvenile offense, this case is charged as second-degree murder. Then the petitions are available for public inspection. But
can we back up a second? Because everybody I've talked to in the newsroom especially, and some people out in the community have said, and you just outlined what second-degree murder is when it comes to this kind of case, the second-degree murder, that's not premeditated, right?
it's not. Second-degree murder is simple and straightforward. It is a knowing, intelligent killing of another.
Okay.
Unlike first degree, which requires premeditation or planning, this is just a knowing act of killing somebody, and it can be a variety of scenarios. Tennessee, we have 5 levels of homicide: first degree, second degree, manslaughter, which is a homicide where someone is under sufficient provocation to cause a reasonable person to act in an irrational manner. We also have reckless homicide. For example, drag racing would fall into that rubric, and then we have a negligent homicide.
But then you're looking at this case, and there's so much that we are hearing in the community. I'm sure many of you are too if you're watching this. A lot of speculation, a lot of rumors, a lot of things that we cannot report yet because they've not been substantiated. But we do know that this girl was stabbed. We know that. There's
a limited amount of information that's available, and here are things that we know. We know that the individual that is charged with second-degree homicide was 15 years old. We know that the victim was 13 years old. We know they went to school in Powell. One thing, it was very interesting, Judge Irwin, when the defense lawyer made a motion to close the courtroom to the media and not release the name of the 15-year-old, Judge Irwin would have none of it.
No, he said, we're releasing the name. Now, does that mean that we're on the way to charging this guy or trying him as an adult?
You know, I don't want to speculate, but let's talk about, well, and you know, this is, and when you were talking about and how this is a rare crime, it's a crime that is horrific, and when you have, you know, for lack of a better term, kids killing kids, when you have homicide, it sends shockwaves through the community. And, you know, let's talk about how rare this is.
Okay, before I ask you about whether he's going to be tried as an adult, what you think. Think about that for a second.
Well, this goes into answering that because in 2020, there were only 1,211 juvenile homicides committed by juveniles in the entire United States. 10% of all violent crimes involve juveniles, so this is very rare. So now let's talk about, you know, you're under 18, so you go to juvenile court. What happens next in a serious criminal offense?
And people don't realize this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, cameras can't be there, but anybody can go watch these hearings, right? They're open
correct.
to the public?
They are, but so Tennessee has a transfer statute that under certain limited instances, a juvenile can be tried as an adult. And when I say tried as an adult, they are taken to adult jail. They're typically segregated. They are tried with a jury. They are tried as anyone else 18 or over would be.
And we've seen some of those cases before, mainly on a nationwide scale. But what does it take to get the case against a juvenile tried as an adult?
Well, remember, when you are in juvenile court, the mandate is what is in the best interest of the child slash juvenile. But when you have a violent, serious crime, it's kind of like the school threat cases where that dynamic gets kind of flipped. The narrative changes, and juvenile court rarely deals with very graphic, heinous, atrocious, cruel homicides because it's rare. It's rare in Knox County and it's rare nationally. But here's what the court looks to. The court looks to, one, whether there's probable cause that the offense occurred. The court looks to whether the juvenile has a prior delinquent record. Have there been prior attempts to rehabilitate the juvenile? Is the crime against property or a person a violent crime? If it's against an individual, it's given great weight in terms of the equation to transfer. They also look at whether the juvenile would be amenable to rehabilitation. And this is very interesting. In this case, kind of really encompasses this criteria, whether it would be in the best interest of the community. I anticipate a motion to transfer this case, and then you're going to see all of the facts. And the prosecutors are going to want to try a classic criminal case and talk about the graphic nature of the injuries, talk about what the autopsy found, talk about the crime scene. And if you're the defense lawyer, you want to talk about the juvenile. What is his history? What is his home dynamics? What was in his mind to cause him to do something so terribly, horribly aberrant?
What about the role of social media? Say there are TikTok posts, Snapchat, things like that. I know Snapchat goes away, but say there are those things that...
It never goes away.
Well, that's true. Snapchat doesn't. It allegedly goes away, but I know you can find it. So how does that weigh in? That's all part of the whole process?
Well, we don't know, but now in a serious criminal case, the first thing you see law enforcement do is, one, get consent to search a phone or get a search warrant to unlock the phone, and that's typically very telling because people, how many times have we said over and over and over, the worst, most damning piece of evidence is your own smartphone.
Yeah.
They don't call it a smartphone for nothing.
Good point.
But again, you don't want to rush to judgment. You don't want to jump to conclusions. But one thing, three things that we know for certain. One, we know the age of these juveniles, an incredibly young victim, 13. We know that there was a homicide and the cause of death was multiple stab wounds. And we know that they have, after looking preliminarily at this evidence, chosen to charge this case as a second-degree homicide, which in adult court would be 15 to 25 years, versus first-degree homicide, which would be 52 years. But a very serious offense, and like I said, juvenile courts are equipped to help the juvenile, but this is one, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
It will, because you take that child's age, and I know we're talking about 13 is young, 15 is young too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you look at would that be a mitigating factor in a lesser sentence?
And let's talk about this. There are only certain enumerated criminal offenses that a juvenile can be transferred, and there's certain age dynamics. So if you're 14 or under, it's more difficult. You have to be charged with first-degree homicide typically. If you're between 14 and 17, then it's basically serious felonies. First-degree homicide, second-degree homicide, aggravated kidnapping, aggravated robbery, an act of terrorism, those are subject to being transferred. If the juvenile is 17 or over, you could be transferred on any criminal offense.
Can these charges be changed? Can they be upgraded to first degree?
Oh, absolutely. So let's talk about real world how this takes place. So you have the transfer hearing. The state's got to prove probable cause. The defense is going to try to prove that this juvenile can be rehabilitated, and Judge Irwin is going to make a finding. If it is transferred to adult court, you will see the Knox County Attorney General's office go to the grand jury. Now, it'll be interesting. Tennessee, like most states, has a grand jury. 13 people meet in secret. Client can't go, defense lawyers can't go, And their job is not to find guilt or innocence beyond a reasonable doubt,
Right.
as it is in criminal court. It's probable cause, the same standard as the transfer hearing. But what you'll see, the prosecutors will know more. They'll know more about what the phone said after they do a forensic phone dump. They'll know more about what witnesses have said. They'll know more about what the medical examiner's opinion is regarding the cause of death. They will know more about the post-mortem interval, that means the time of death. So, sometimes even though you're transferred on this crime, it comes out of the grand jury when you get to adult court.
This crime.
This crime.
Yeah. All right. We will see what happens. Let's talk more at 5:30, unless you have more.
Terrible tragedy. Let's
Yeah,
do.
it's horrible. Thank you for being with us.